Me and several other people, the road captains, were leaving Ottawa. We left the hotel. That's why I did a video on March 12th to say that we're finally leaving the area because we were trying to de-escalate the police. I can't have any communication with her. I can't have any communication with Chris Barber. And so I'm not going to because I don't want to put any risk to them.
Yankee Pollack for Rebel News, and a couple of weeks ago I was covering the Bitcoin conference taking place in Florida. If you'd like to see my coverage from that event, please check out bitcoinreports.ca. While I was at the conference, I ran into Benjamin Dichter, who is one of the spokespeople and organizers for the Canadian Convoy to Ottawa. Some of his fellow organizers, like Tamara Litch, spent weeks in jail for their involvement in the convoy after Justin Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act, giving police extraordinary powers of arrest and confiscation. Others involved in the convoy were treated like terrorist suspects. They had their assets and bank accounts frozen or seized. Dichter was in Florida. He told me he had been out of the country since mid-March, so I had a lot of questions to ask. Here's our interview.
What brings you here today?
Within the realm of the Freedom Convoy, I was the only one who had knowledge of Bitcoin and also had been in Bitcoin. So I've been interested in Bitcoin for several years. And so when the Bitcoin community came out and held their first fundraiser to support the convoy, they reached out to me because they saw on my profile that I had hashtag Bitcoin and all that sort of stuff and some of my tweets that, my area of interest in it.
Do you think that Bitcoin helped the truckers in Canada succeed?
I think it helped the truckers, and I also think it helped Canadians overall to wake up and be aware of how things operate in terms of our monetary structure and the amount of power that the government has. That the money is not your money, it's the government's money, and they're basically letting you use it. And this case was proven at the Freedom Convoy when we saw with the first GoFundMe was the first bit of money that was transferred was blocked by TD Bank. And then GoFundMe canceled the remaining $9 million that we raised because according to the mayor, Jim Watson, that him and the police basically got involved in sales tampering and encouraged and lobbied GoFundMe to return the money. And then when we went to Give, Send, Go to do the same thing, and we got up to about $8.5 million, then Doug Ford and the Attorney General declared it to be illegal, put an injunction on that money. So, and one of the problems we can't do with all this, we can't say it's conservative versus liberal. No. Doug Ford is supposed to be a conservative, yet he's blocking donations from hardworking blue-collar people. So it was really frustrating to see that. And the only thing that was able to get to the truckers was Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin community they raised 1.1 million, almost $1.2 million, I believe. And the vast majority of that was distributed to, I don't remember, it was 100 and so truckers. Each got something like $8,000 each in Bitcoin for the 3 weeks that they were sitting there in the cold while the government was trying to starve them and freeze them by seizing their fuel. Bitcoin is the one thing that helped to save people there.
What happened with the first $1 million that was transferred and then frozen by TD? Whatever happened with that?
Everything is, okay, so all the questions that need to be asked, and you can tell this to the CBC, who seems to be quite illiterate at this point, everything is in court documents with that class action suit that was filed. So everything that was transferred at all points, from what I understand, again, I'm not the finance person, just what everybody's telling me, has been transferred to the escrow account, the bankruptcy attorney, for the attorneys that are representing both sides. They came to that agreement early on. So it was very interesting that Jerry Butts was obsessed with the amount of money that we were raising. And very shortly after, within a couple of weeks, there was a lawsuit by somebody with ties to the Liberal Party, and they agreed to, well, we will remove the injunction as long as all the money goes to an escrow account. So that's the status of everything right now.
Regarding you, most Freedom Convoy organizers were charged or being investigated. Are you being investigated or charged with anything? What happened to you? Was any of your accounts frozen personally, or what happened to you personally?
Okay, so a couple of things. Firstly, Ezra is the hardest working person in journalism. I give him a lot of credit for that. But I was really disappointed when he didn't understand when I put out a tweet saying, I'm leaving, me and several other people, the road captains, we're leaving Ottawa. We left the hotel. That's why I did a video on March 12th to say that we're finally leaving the area, because we were trying to de-escalate the police. I have a brother's a police officer, a nephew's a police officer. I understand how that world works. And we were talking with a number of people to strategize. And I also lawyered up like crazy. So I know a lot of lawyers. I produce a podcast for a lawyer. So I think because of those things, in conjunction, they understood that I got out of the red zone, moved on, spoke to my lawyers, they communicated with the police, and that's why I was not sought to be arrested on a mischief charge, which I'm not going to say it's a fake charge. As one of the cops tells me, he said to me, I've never even laid a mischief charge. That's the threat we use to disperse kids who are in a park.
When was the last time you were in Canada, and are you scared to ever go back if they might charge you on the way in?
I left Canada on March the 15th. So I left the Ottawa area on the 12th. The night of the 12th, went home, did a couple things, changed clothes, all that sort of stuff. Got on a plane, came down to Florida. Why? Because I have a broken ankle, and I'm going to sit there, recover by myself. And so I figured, you know what, I'm going to come down here, see my parents. Spent a couple of weeks with them because they're, snowbirds. And then I went to Colombia to visit some friends, and I just came back here 2 days ago for the conference. Am I afraid to go back to Canada? I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid to go back to Canada. I think the government is very afraid of the position that they're in right now because they're a laughing stock on the world stage. And as they continue to double down on their strategies, which is what extremists always do, they always double down, they're going to make it worse for themselves, and they're going to continue digging the grave. And that's why I encourage whoever forms the next government, whether it's Pierre Poilievre or somebody else, what has to be in there is a push for a royal commission, an investigation into exactly the government's behavior and invoking the Emergency Measures Act in Canada. This can never happen again. And these people, we can't just sweep it under the rug again. Legally, in the free country of Canada, I cannot have any communication with Tamara. And I don't want to get her in trouble. I mean, she's my friend. I cared. I was very upset when she was held. And when they pulled her, they brought her in shackles. In shackles. What happened to, we're going to virtue signal around Indigenous women? Like, what happened to that, right? Prime Minister Blackface. So I can't have any communication with her. I can't have any communication with Chris Barber. And so I'm not going to, because I don't want to put any risk to them. There are other truckers who are still in jail being held because they just can't afford legal representation. So that's why we're launching this initiative with people, and I'm not, but people in the Bitcoin community are launching this initiative, Honking for Freedom. That is going to be we call it the Delta wave of the Freedom Convoy, where these group of people are going to be raising money for legal defense, legal offense, and additional strategies involved with furthering the narrative and the push for freedom in Canada. And by the way, they still haven't ended mandates, and they still haven't removed that passport app. So they're going to do it. Whether they like it or not, they're going to do it eventually because the push is going to continue. And it's going to be because of communities like that coming together and furthering this. We'll see how successful it is, but I think it's going to be successful, judging by the people that are getting involved. So I'll give you one example. Jeffrey Wernick, who is a very well-known person in finance and industry and crypto. He got into Bitcoin in 2009, so done very well for himself. Explained to me that the foundation that they are forming, he is going to take full legal liability by being a director in this foundation, and he's also not drawing a salary. That's how much he believes in the freedom movement and what the Canadian truckers did for the rest of the world. My truck was never in Ottawa, and I couldn't because of the type of contract I have as an owner-operator. Some people could, some people couldn't, depending on their insurance. But I'll do my best to help people so they don't get into trouble, they walk carefully, and they make sure that the foundation of this movement remains based on love and on peace and on unity and on freedom. And there's no reason for anyone to ever get violent at any point in time. Let the violence come from the government, because every time they do that, they embarrass themselves and destroy their reputations on the world stage.
How long have you been a trucker? I've known you since, I guess, 2016. You were involved, you ran in 2015, and you were involved in LGBT Tory and other stuff. I never knew that you're a trucker or that you own a truck.
I guess you'd say I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur. I try lots of different things and, lots of different side hustles. What really got me into it was two things. My brother, who's going to be retiring sometime soon, was thinking, hey, maybe we should do a trucking business when I retire. The requirements for a license were changing a few years ago, or a couple of years, or whenever it was. And he said, yeah, just get your license. Maybe we'll use it one day. You never know. Okay, so I did. And then COVID hit. And this whole lockdown stuff was making me crazy. Like, I didn't change my lifestyle at all. I still went to the same coffee shop every day. Didn't change anything, but it was still making me crazy that there were these restrictions on traveling. So he said to me, listen, let's get a second truck, and you'll come with me. We'll do tandem runs whenever we can. And we'll go to the US and get a taste of freedom a couple of times a week, a few times a month, whatever it is. I always love driving long distance, and I know how to run a business. So I figured, yeah, sure, give it a try. So I bought a truck then and got into it, and it's kind of my side hustle, and it's been my salvation to get away from the lockdowns. And so I saw this entire time the stark difference between what you were going through in Quebec and what the United States was, even in the most strict jurisdictions, like in New York State, which I go to frequently. It was nowhere near to the level of what it was in Canada. It was like two different planets. It was crazy.
Let's clarify. So there was $1 million from TD Frozen. That is in an escrow right
Yes.
now. And there was $12 million from GoFundMe. What happened with that?
So GoFundMe, when it got to $10.1 million, and that's the Mayor Watson's tweet of, thank you, GoFundMe, for terminating this campaign. I have a copy of the tweet I can send to you, actually. That money was all returned. Remember, originally, GoFundMe said, well, we're going to take the money and we are going to just send it to charities of our choice. And then Florida man Ron DeSantis knocks it out of the park again, says, that sounds like criminal fraud to me. Perhaps they require an investigation. And GoFundMe, no, we'll return it. So,
And what happened with the approximately $8 million from Give Send Go? Where's that money?
okay, so the Give Send Go had the injunction put on it by Doug Ford. So that money, if it was to come into Canada, would have been frozen by TD the same way the initial $1.4 million, whatever it was. So Give Send Go was doing a favor to the board and saying, you guys deal with the legal stuff, we'll hold on to the money. That's what they had promised. I didn't have direct comment, but that's what the board was telling me. Okay, fine. I figured we'll wait it out. And then for whatever reason, I guess they figured out that they essentially are trying to use this class action suit to litigate and then try to make the claim that that money should go to the residents of Ottawa for the, the anguish and pain of the horns. So once Give Send Go realized it, they said, you know what, at least this is what I understand. They said, we're not playing this game. We're just going to return it all. And so that money apparently is being returned or should have been returned by now or is in the process.
Does the Freedom Convoy have any of the money right now? Or all the money is either returned or in the escrow? Other than that, is there any money?
No, everything is in escrow. The Bitcoin was distributed to the truckers. Then there was a portion of the Bitcoin that the RCMP, when they raided one of the Bitcoiners' house, they seized his seed phrase, and I think they turned it over to the escrow agent, or the escrow agent got it from however it was. So that portion, which is a couple $100,000 or something, that's in escrow along with all the other money. With those transfers, I think it was Give Send Go. They didn't tell me which one it was from, but $3.5 million, I think he told me, was being held by Stripe as well, the payment processor in the US. And that money is supposed to be in escrow. So all the escrow agents and the lawyers and whatever have been dealing with this for the past month or so. It's all in the court documents. Apparently, the CBC is not only fake news, but they're also illiterate, unable to read court documents. If they did, they took 2 seconds to go read the court documents, they'd know where all the money is, as opposed to the fake news story that they ran today. So I'm willing to guess that's going to be yet another story they're going to have to retract. And I would advise them, they better retract it or govern themselves accordingly.
When are you going back to Canada?
I don't know. I have a ticket to go back in April. Thank you for all your support. I know Alexandra was there constantly. She was great. She's a great reporter. I was a little bit disappointed in the tweet from Ezra, but no harm, no foul. I know he works very hard, and we need him, and we thank you guys for everything that you do.
If you like the shirt I'm wearing, Fringe Minority, check out rebelnewsstore.com where you can buy this shirt and many other shirts. Please check out rebelnewsstore.com for the best merch